I usually don't upload back to back, but seeing the feedback from last video, I guess I should keep this going. So on the last episode of the Aqua Anime, we went through the sacred geometry and the hermetic understanding of infinity, and Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher, being a huge stepping stone in studying the mystery schools, in which he proposed the concept of monad, where the universe originated from a single unit or point, the circle, in geometry, often considered the perfect shape and embodying the golden ratio. In Gnosticism, this point and circle symbolizes the origin of the universe, as both sacred geometry and philosophy attribute infinity to the divine, just as a circle is infinite in nature. Then I went further and explained how monad, like infinity, mathematically, infinity keeps calculating and generating numbers. Monad, being of infinity, starts to calculate and articulate and generate ideas and concepts, which expanded to create the highest level of consciousness in this universe, the pleroma, in which monad then created entities known as eons within it. These eons had attributes of monad. The first eon is often described as Barbelo, the supreme divine feminine. I emphasized a point of caution here. When people suggest God is a woman, blasphemy, right? It can be attributed and acknowledged that Barbelo, as the first manifestation of divine expression, it can provoke discomfort or conflict for those who believe or frame God differently, right? Additionally, some Gnostic schools don't consider Barbelo as the first eon. From that point, I discussed Christ, aka Logos, the eon of divine reason. And then I talked about Sophia, the eon of divine wisdom, each playing pivotal roles in the cosmic narrative. And finally, to end the recap and summary, I went into much more detail in the previous video, but Sophia, the female counterpart of Christ, aka Logos, decided she wanted to mimic the monad and create her own manifestations, her own eons, her own pleroma-like realm maybe. To do this, she acted independently and stepped out of the pleroma. However, her first attempt to create just like monad was able to create resulted in the formation of a monstrous creature, a being born in a shining cloud with the body of a serpent and the head of a lion. Realizing her mistake, Sophia fled back to the pleroma, leaving her creation abandoned, later known as the Demiurge. Abandoned in the realm outside the pleroma, which was the chaotic void. This realm, often called chaos, was not part of the divine universe yet. By creating the Demiurge outside of the divine, quote, sandbox of the monad, Sophia introduced this being into a realm that is disconnected from divine harmony. When the Demiurge eventually became self-aware, he's like, where am I? Am I alone here? I don't even know where I came from. But I have divine power. Since Sophia had inadvertently imbued him with some of her divine essence during his creation, Sophia created him as he inherited her divine powers, right? The Demiurge. And the Demiurge, not knowing where he came from and just being born alone, abandoned in this chaotic void, makes his power something that he feels is evidence that he must be God. He declares, I am God, and there is no other God beside me. What's critical here is that the Demiurge is completely unaware of the monad or the pleroma. So his arrogance and ignorance fuel his belief that he is the ultimate creator. And honestly, you can't entirely blame him. If you found yourself as the only conscious entity or being in a chaotic realm with immense divine power at your hands, but no knowledge of your origins, you might also assume you are God too. And I ended the video, last video, and I ended the video like this. And I said, you know what happened after the Demiurge claimed themselves to be God and realized his power? In 6 days, God created the earth and heavens and rested on the seventh. And on the first day, God said, let there be light. Now, here we are at this next episode. If you didn't catch the reference to how I ended last video, in Genesis, the first book of the Holy Bible, God created the universe in 6 days, right? And yes, first day, God said, let there be light. Now, completing this whole recap, there's a lingering issue that might have left some of you stumped about the Demiurge. Take a look at the image on the screen right now. What are we seeing here? A serpent's body and a lion's head. The chaotic void where the Demiurge was created, as we discussed in the last video in the recap, remember, Monad's manifestations and expansions were geometrically perfect, with the circle symbolizing balance, unity, infinity, because no beginning or end in a circle. But did you know that even in chaos, which seems random, often contains hidden order? Take this image, for example. Its patterns may look chaotic to you, right? Yet they hold fractals and scale in a dynamic way, still obeying geometric and other mathematical principles. In chaos, a circle might distort into spirals or fractals, but it retains its essence. So what does this mean, and how does this relate? The Demiurge, born in a realm of chaos and disorder by Sophia, reflects this is its form. The Demiurge becomes self-aware of the fact that it's broken, incomplete, distorted. But it may not want to admit that. It's not hard to sympathize with the Demiurge when you think about it. This is an entity abandoned, born into misalignment, loneliness, confusion, and loss. Doesn't that sound relatable? Maybe to some of you in your own life. Even though this is his situation, he, the Demiurge, God, as he calls himself, in this chaotic realm of darkness, he still has the divine light from Sophia inherited in him after being created by her. That's why on the first day, the Demiurge, or God, says on the first day of creation, let there be light. The Demiurge used Sophia's light as the first step towards creating order out of chaos in which he was born into. This is the God in your Bible right now, according to Gnosticism. But Aku, isn't the God in the Bible Yahweh? Well, technically, who is Yahweh? Because the Demiurge is doing the same exact thing as Yahweh. Many scholars and researchers say exactly so. They are one and the same. The Demiurge is Yahweh, and Yahweh is the Demiurge, which is why Gnosticism isn't compatible with most mainstream religions, because this means your God isn't perfect. He's a depressed, chaotic, lost, misaligned, and confused being who thinks he's a God based on his own ignorance and arrogance. So when God, throughout the whole Bible, especially the Old Testament, is killing millions of people and cursing them based off of his pettiness, and makes his own people suffer because he's having power trips, which is a fact. God in the Bible is a serial killer and has extreme psychopathic anger issues, right? I don't know how people could deny this, because it's literally in the book. Does this really show an all-loving God, an all-loving being? Because we attribute God to being all-loving, right? This being that is all-loving tries to destroy his creation by flooding the earth and wiping everyone out. Now tell me, is this Stockholm Syndrome? Is that love? Or is that entity that loves? Or is that something or somebody or some being who is broken, distorted, chaotic, lost, and arrogant? This conversation is dangerous territory. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't get mad I'm saying this stuff. I didn't write the Old Testament and describe God's behavior in it, nor did I introduce Gnosticism to humanity. This is simply how Gnosticism analyzes and relates to the stories of mainstream religion. Whether you accept or reject it is up to you. In this narrative, though, After the Demiurge said, "Let there be light," he separates light and darkness to create day and night. His imperfections and limitations do not allow him to be infinite while doing so, just like Monad. Even though he isn't aware of the pleroma at this point while creating this material world that we live in right now, the same people, you're watching this video in his material world. Even though he isn't aware of the pleroma, right after the creation of day and night, or light and darkness, he does something very interesting, because this has been noted in Mesopotamia, Greek astronomy, and all Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Demiurge tried to, oh, by the way, they tried to fix this in the Bible, okay? Look at the screenshot right now on BibleHub.com. You know something? See how I highlighted the words here? There's a reason why some mention, they don't say this in the King James Version, all right? They don't, why some people mention God created the heavens, and then some say God created one heaven, all right? Big narrative here. It's a big difference. This is also mentioned in the book of Enoch, where Enoch visited multiple heavens, but they took that out of the Bible as well. The Demiurge creates 7 different cosmos, or heavens. Each heaven he creates represents a quality or influence that shape this material world. You know how in astrology, people say the moon represents emotions and cycles and instincts? And like Venus, the planet represents love, beauty, and desire. Each heaven is correspondent to a celestial body. The moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And you've seen a lot of civilizations, if you know your history, also associate gods or other deities or beings with these planets for a reason. Because the Demiurge, each one of these planets, or quote, heavens, he designed to be ruled or controlled by an entity he created, called an archon. Now, it may confuse you to why he may do this. The Demiurge wanted to keep so much order and control over his creation that he didn't want anything under his dominion in this material world to potentially gain more power or become too knowledgeable or spiritually awoke in per se, right? Look, y'all, here's the best way I could explain this if you're confused. A dog doesn't know it has a collar on its neck until you take the collar off, right? What does this mean? It's an analogy that if you remain ignorant or within your conscious or mental boundaries, you don't know your ignorance until you see yourself in a new consciousness. Does that make sense? A dog will have a collar on without knowing, but in reality, that collar has tags, right? So who owns the dog, the address, the phone number to call the dog is missing, and it shows that the dog is within boundaries or owned by somebody, or again, within boundaries of their freedom. The same can be said about intellect and consciousness. The Demiurge is afraid of entities having that collar taken off. So each heaven, he created a barrier, or he created as a barrier. For example, remember how I mentioned the moon represents emotions, instincts, and cycles in astrology and cosmology? The moon, or that heaven in Gnosticism, is a barrier for emotional attachment to the physical world. And they teach you to disregard this in Eastern religions like Buddhism. They say we as human beings suffer so much because we attach ourselves to material things. You disconnect from that. You disconnect from being obsessed with material things in this world. Your level of consciousness, self-awareness, and happiness increases. The Demiurge does not want that. So even though I gave him sympathy earlier about his origin, because it is depressing if you really think about it, this guy, though, Demiurge is power hungry and wants to keep you in line, enslaved within boundaries, like a dog with its collar on. That's why the Demiurge made these 7 heavens ruled by these entities, enforce ignorance, suppress the divine spark within our soul, within everyone's soul. Because you know what happens when you die? You go to heaven, right? You go to heaven when you die, right? If you believe in that. But in this case, that heaven is a barrier in reality. And what happens when you hit a barrier? Boom, you smash into something. You bounce back like immediately. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't go any farther. You can't go any farther after once you hit a barrier. This works in the idea of reincarnation as well. So think about it like this. The Demiurge is sitting right now, the creator of our material world. And as you die, he feeds off of this with his archons and sends you hit a barrier and he sends you right back to the material world. Right? You will never enter the pleroma or see the true divine light. He locks your soul in here and keeps you knocking into barriers or quote heavens because we are his creation. And he wants us to never reach divinity or the highest form of consciousness. This guy doesn't want to lose his power. To him, the Demiurge, liberation isn't an option. This world is a prison. His prison. I'm going to end this episode like this. We can go to a part 3 if you guys want. Just let me know down below or just leave a like, right? There is a way to salvation, okay? To escape this prison. This existence is a dystopia. So let me say this before I put the outro. In 6 days, God created the heavens and the earth and rested on the 7th. On the first day, he said, let there be light. On the second day, he created the sky and seas, the heavens, the firmament. On the third day, he created the land, seas, and vegetation. The fourth day, he filled the heavens with celestial bodies, such as the sun, moon, and stars, archons. The fifth day, birds and fish. And on the sixth day, man and woman. Something about man and woman feeds the Demiurge and the archons. Something they're afraid of. Because Sophia's light, remember where Demiurge came from. He does have something divine in him. Although the light that he got from Sophia is fragmented, it carries something. And somebody tries to wake us up from this nightmare, from this dystopia. And who that figure is, some of you probably already know, right? We'll find out in the next episode. This episode is found on Spotify and YouTube. Times Square.
Nightmare 7 a.m. in the morning though. No surprise. Times Square's you and I under those lights. No disguise. Don't tell me everything you wanted was a lie. All those city lights, it's an endless night. Never expected you to bring me so much life. Close my eyes too long, then it's time to say goodbye. Let's dance all night until the stars don't show glow. Till the sunrise, then we go solo. Making up for all the times that we were low. Let's make some memories before we do go. Let's dance all night until the stars don't show glow. Till the sunrise, then we go solo. Making up for all the times that we were low. Let's make some memories before we do go. Caution. Wait a moment, keep my heart locked away, it's filled with emotion. Gave the key to you, right in front of you is open. Hey, try your best to not leave it broken. Oh, it's been a while since you know it's frozen.